Good evening.
Sandra,
Yeah?
is the TV too loud?
Is the TV too loud?
No.
Okay.
Good evening, everybody. Let people come in and get a meeting started. Alright. Try to wait for my sister to come in. Let me know that she can hear me. Anyway. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So if you're new here, welcome. It is an AA meeting. Let me get the steps. And please be kind in chat. Thank you, Lily. Be kind in chat. Don't harass each other. No judging. But yeah. Step 1. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. 4. Made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5. Admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6. We're entirely ready to have God remove all these defective characters. 7. Humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. 8. Made a list of all persons we had harmed and become willing to make amends to them all. 9. Made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10. Continue to take personal inventory and when wrong, promptly admit it. 11. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, only praying for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. If you want to know where to get those, it's right in the front of your 12 Steps and Traditions book. And I always put in the description what page we're on, what book we're reading, and the stories we are reading. And today we are on The Housewife Who Drank at Home on page 295. She hid her bottles in clothes hampers and dresser drawers. In AA, she discovered she had lost nothing and had found everything. My story happens to be a particular kind of woman's story. The story of the woman who drinks at home. I had to be at home. I had 2 babies. When alcohol took me over, my bar was my kitchen. My living room was my bedroom, the back bathroom, and 2 laundry hampers. At one time, the admission that I was and am an alcoholic meant shame, defeat, and failure to me. But in the light of the new understanding that have found in AA, I have been able to interpret that defeat and that failure and that shame as seeds of victory, because it was only through feeling defeat and feeling failure, the inability to cope with my life and with alcohol, that I was able to surrender and accept that fact that I had this disease and that I had to learn to live again without alcohol. I was never a very heavy social drinker, but during a period of particular stress and strain about 13 years ago, I resorted to using alcohol in my home alone as a means of temporary release of getting a little extra sleep. I had problems. We all have them, and I thought a little brandy or a little wine now and then could certainly hurt no one. I don't believe when I started that I even had in mind the thought that I was drinking. I had to sleep. I had to clear my mind and free it from worry, and I had to relax. But from one or two drinks of an afternoon or evening, my intake mounted and mounted fast. It wasn't long before I was drinking all day. I had to have that wine. The only incentive that I had toward the end of getting dressed in the morning was to get out and get supplies to help me get my day started. But the only thing that got started was my drinking. I should have realized that alcohol was getting hold of me when I started to become secretive in my drinking. I began to have supplies on hand for the people who might come in. And of course, a half-empty bottle wasn't worth keeping, so I finished it up and naturally had to get more in right away for the people who might come in unexpectedly. But it was always the unexpected person who had to finish the bottle. I couldn't go to one wine store and look the man honestly in the face and buy a bottle as I used to do when I had parties and entertained and did normal drinking. I had to give him a story and ask him the same question over and over again. Well now, how many will that bottle serve? I wanted him to be sure that I wasn't the one who was going to drink the whole bottle. I had to hide, as a great many people in AA have had to do. I did my hiding in the hampers and in my dresser drawers. When we begin to do things like that with alcohol, something's gone wrong. I needed it, and I knew was drinking too much, but I wasn't conscious of the fact that I should stop. Hello, Riza. I kept on. My home at that time was a place to mill around in. I wandered from room to room, thinking, drinking, thinking, and the mops would come out. The vacuum would come out. Everything would come out, but nothing would get done. Toward 5 o'clock, helter skelter, I'd get everything put away and try to get supper on the table. And after supper, I'd finish the job up and knock myself out. Hi, Josh. I miss you, my friend. I never knew which came first, the thinking or the drinking. If I could only stop thinking, I wouldn't drink. If I could only stop drinking, maybe I wouldn't think. But they were all mixed up together, and I was all mixed up inside. And yet I had to have that drink. You know, the deteriorating effects, the disintegrating effects of chronic wine drinking. I cared nothing about my personal appearance. I didn't care what I looked like. I didn't care what I did. To me, taking a bath was just being in a place with a bottle where I could drink in privacy. I had to have it with me at night in case I woke up and needed that drink. How I ran my home, I don't know. I went on realizing with what I was becoming, hating myself for it, bitter, blaming life, blaming everything but the fact that I should turn about and do something about my drinking. Finally, I didn't care. I was beyond caring. I just wanted to live to a certain age, carry through with what I felt was my job with the children, and after that, no matter, half a mother was better than no mother at all. I needed that alcohol. I couldn't live without it. I couldn't do anything without it. But there came a point when I could no longer live with it. And that came after 3 weeks' illness of my son. The doctor prescribed a teaspoon of brandy for the boy to help him through the night when he coughed. Well, of course, that was all I needed to switch from wine to brandy for 3 weeks. I knew nothing about alcoholism or the DTs, but when I woke up on that last morning of my son's illness, I tapped the keyhole on my door because everyone was out there. I paced back and forth in the apartment with the cold sweats. I screamed on the telephone for my mother to get up there. Something was going to happen. I didn't know what, but if she didn't get there quick, I'd split wide open. I called my husband up and told him to come home. After that, I sat for a week, a body in a chair, a mind off in space. I thought the two would never get together. I knew that alcohol and I had to part. I couldn't live with it anymore, and yet, how was I going to live without it? I didn't know. I was bitter, living in hate. The very person who stood with me through it all and has been my greatest help was the person that I turned against, my husband. I also turned against my family, my mother. The people who would have come to help me were just the people I would have nothing to do with. Nevertheless, I began to try to live without alcohol, but I only succeeded in fighting it. And believe me, an alcoholic can't fight alcohol. I said to my husband, I'm going to try to get inserted in something outside. Get myself out of this rut I'm in. I thought I was going out of my mind. If I didn't have a drink, I had to do something. I became one of the most active women in the community with with PTAs, other community organizations and drives. I'd go into an organization and it wasn't long before I was on the committee and then I was chairman of the committee. And if I was in a group, I'd soon be treasurer or secretary of the group. But I wasn't happy. I became a Jekyll and Hyde person. As long as I worked, as long as I got out, I didn't drink. But I had to get back to that first drink somehow. And when I took that first drink, I was off on the usual merry-go-round. And it was my home that suffered. I figured I'd be alright if I could find something I liked to do. So when the children were in school from 9 to 3, I started up a nice little business and was fairly successful in it, but not happy because I found that everything I turned to became a substitute for drink. And when all of life is a substitute for drink, there's no happiness, no peace. I still had to drink. I still needed that drink. Mere cessation from drinking is not enough for an alcoholic while the needed for that drink goes on. I switched to beer. I had always hated beer, but now I grew to love it. So that wasn't my answer either. I went to my doctor again. He knew what I was doing, how I was trying. I said, I can't find my middle road in life. I can't find it. It's either all work or I drink. He said, why don't you try Alcoholics Anonymous? I was willing to try anything. I was licked. For the second time, I was licked. The first time was when I knew I couldn't live with alcohol. But this second time, I found I couldn't live normally without it. And I was licked worse than ever. The fellowship I found in AA enabled me to face my problem honestly and squarely. I couldn't do it among my relatives. I couldn't do it among my friends. No one likes to admit that they're a drunk, that they can't control this thing. But when we come into AA, we can face our problem honestly and openly. I went to closed meetings and open meetings, and I took everything the AA had to give me. Easy does it, first things first, one day at a time. It was at that point that I reached surrender. I heard one very ill woman say that she didn't believe in the surrender part of the AA program. My heavens, surrender to me has meant the ability to run my home, to face my responsibilities as they should be faced, to take life as it comes to me day by day and work my problems out. That's what surrender has meant to me. I surrendered once to the bottle and I couldn't do these things. Since I gave my will over to AA, whatever AA has wanted of me, I've tried to do to the best of my ability. When I'm asked to go out on a call, I go. I'm not going. AA is leading me there. AA gives us alcoholics directions into a way of life without the need of alcohol. That life for me is lived one day at a time, letting the problem of the future rest with the future. When the time comes to solve them, God will give me strength for that day. I had been brought up to believe in God, but I know that until I found this AA program, I had never found or known faith in the reality of God, the reality of His power that is now with me in everything I do. I highlighted, of course, surrender to me has meant the ability to run my home and face my responsibilities as they should be faced, to take life as it comes to me day by day and work my problems out. It's not always easy to work those problems out, not right off at that instant. But I have learned that I can go back to that situation and to that person who I had that situation with and make my amends and work it out. Love you too, Brandy. Hi, Gia. Hi, Ash. Welcome to the AA meeting. But I was just like this person. My kids were in school all day. The only thing different is I didn't work. I just put myself at doing stuff at home. And then it got worse, and I started getting into where I get all my cleaning stuff out and get ready to clean the house just like that, and it never get done. Never get done. Like, nope, not today. And I'd be drunk by noon. Way before noon, actually. And I can live life honestly and day by day sober because I found this thing that works. The AA really works. And I also went back out after the first time I quit drinking that I didn't have AA. So I also highlighted I should have realized that alcohol was getting hold of me when I started to become secretive in my drinking. I began to have supplies on hand for the people who might come in, and of course, a half-empty bottle wasn't worth keeping, so I finished it up. And I would hide the alcohol everywhere. And then I'd forget where it was, but of course, my husband knew I was hiding it. Because I thought I was being sneaky, and I really wasn't. And that's the thing that gets you in the end is you're fooling only yourself. You're not fooling anybody else. They can see what you're doing. They know what you're doing. They can see your actions, and they just know. You don't have to say a word. They just know. How I ran my home, I don't know. I went on, realizing what I was becoming, hating myself for it, bitter, blaming life, blaming everything but the fact that I should turn about and do something about my drinking. Yep, exactly. And the changing from the wine to the brandy, I didn't start with the wine. I started with the hard stuff, the mixed drink. Drinking beer when I was a teenager, I didn't like that very much. But if I could get it, I would, which was dumb. But when I got to my 30s, old enough to buy it, not necessarily have the means to buy it, but I would buy it. And I had to have it before I went to sleep. If I went to bed without any, I was freaking out in the morning. Like, I gotta get rid of these shakes. Those shakes are awful. I hated shaking. I'd go through binges. I'd drink for a few days, I'd stop for a day. I'd drink for a few days, and I'd stop for a couple days. It didn't matter. It was a never-ending go-around. Man, I'm glad I found AA and got out of that. And I work this program every day, every single day. I can't not use it every day, because if I don't use it, I'm going to probably be back out there in trouble. Probably in more trouble. I don't want that. But I relate to all of these things in here, and the newcomers don't realize that we know what it's like and how it is, and the different things that we go through in those times of needing or wanting that drink. You don't need it, and you really shouldn't want it, but we all understand. And AA has an open door policy. Everyone's welcome there. Doesn't matter your color, your gender, none of that matters. All that matters is that you're coming to get help, and we are there to help. That's the only thing that AA requires, and that is to share your story of alcoholism and finding AA and working the steps. The only requirement for membership is the desire to not drink. And that's the hard part when you first come in. Believe me, that's the hard part. But when you start to hear people's stories and you're just like, oh wow, I can relate. That's what happened to me. Is the first meeting I went to, I was like, okay, whatever, this is bogus. Nobody in here's got my story and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, they did. And so the day after that first meeting, I called 3 numbers on the list that I got from that first meeting. And the third person answered her phone, and she is my sponsor. She's still my sponsor, and I'm 10 years in sobriety. And I've had 2 sponsors. I had them both at the same time. And, they always told me, use your voice. Use it, and always use it. And so I've learned that no matter where I am, no matter what the day is, I can say I'm a recovering alcoholic and be proud to say that I'm in recovery, that I'm recovering, and I will always be recovering as long as I keep on this sobriety journey with AA and all the fellows of AA. And just doing these meetings here helps me a lot. I mean, it helps me as it helps you, because I'm reminding myself of what it's like and the steps I've had to take, and continuing to work my steps every day. it gets easier, and it gets to where you really don't even realize that you're using your steps in whatever it is that you're doing. Every now and then I'll catch myself realizing, oh wait, that was just step whatever, and like making my amends right off. I like to argue sometimes, but I have to make amends to it right away, and that's the part I really don't like, but I have to do it. And I admit when I'm wrong. The husband will argue with me about that, but yeah. But no matter what, Alcoholics Anonymous is everywhere. Absolutely everywhere. And if you're struggling with alcohol or any other battle that you're battling, you're not alone. There's many people just like you. We look different, and that's about it. And just knowing that there is hope, and there are groups out there that specialize in helping in their own way, like AA, and it's all yourself, making yourself realize that this is actually what I need that will hopefully help. And it's not for everybody. Um, some people can do it on their own, but some people can't. And for me, AA helps me every day, and that's why I do it. And I'm just glad that I have the platform that I can do meetings on, because it's a free gift that I got, and it's free for me to give. So, but with that, I'm gonna read the daily reflection, and if you don't know, there is a daily reflection app on Google Play. That's where I got mine. I'm not sponsored by them or affiliated with them or anything, but The Joy of Living, December 29th. And Happy New Year. Please don't go out and drink. Um, there's better things to do than to do that. But anyway, therefore, the joy of good living is the theme of AA's 12 steps. 12 steps and 12 traditions, page 125.
If they lose it down there, they gotta go almost 90 yards for the touchdown.
AA is a joyful program. Even so, I occasionally balk at taking the necessary steps to move ahead, and find myself resisting the very actions that could bring about the joy I want. I would not resist if those actions did not touch some vulnerable area of my life, an area that needs hope and fulfillment. Repeated exposure to joyfulness has a way of softening the hard outer edges of my ego. Therein lies the power of joyfulness to help all members of AA. Amen. I love you guys. And let's say the serenity prayer, and I hope you guys have a great new year, and a safe one, a sober one, and with friends and family. With that, I love you guys. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Keep coming back. It works if you work it. Love you guys.